In 2003, the United States went to war over weapons that every senior intelligence official privately knew did not exist. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is the conclusion of the Iraq Survey Group, a body commissioned by the U.S. government itself. And Iraq was not the exception. It was the template. Because here is what the last 5 decades actually look like when you strip away the press conferences, the speeches, and the carefully chosen words. 9 countries, 9 governments, 9 leaders removed, overthrown, imprisoned, bombed, or killed. And in every single case, the story sold to the public was not the real story, not even close. This is not about being anti-American or anti-Western. Most people in these countries never voted for these decisions. Most never knew about them at all. This is about the gap between what power says and what power does. Let's go through it, country by country. Fact by fact. Iraq, March 20th, 2003. Colin Powell stood before the United Nations, held up a vial, and told the world that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Biological, chemical, possibly nuclear. The world, he said, could not afford to wait. So America didn't wait. Shock and awe. Baghdad lit up like a nightmare. The largest American military deployment since Vietnam. Saddam's government collapsed in weeks. And then the search began. They found nothing. Not one weapon. Not one canister. Not one shred of the threat that had justified everything. The Iraq Survey Group, commissioned by the U.S. government itself, confirmed it officially in 2004. The intelligence was wrong, selectively used, shaped to fit a conclusion that had already been reached. And every senior official who built that case, they retired comfortably, wrote memoirs, gave paid speaking engagements. Not one faced a courtroom. So what was it actually about? Iraq held the world's second largest proven oil reserves. After the invasion, American and British energy companies moved in. Contracts were signed, pipelines secured, over $2 trillion of taxpayer money spent, more than 500,000 people killed, documented by the Lancet Medical Journal and multiple independent studies. And from the power vacuum that followed, a new organization emerged from the chaos. You know its name, ISIS. One more detail worth knowing. The man they hunted down and executed, Saddam Hussein, had once been America's most valued partner in the region. The CIA supported him. Rumsfeld shook his hand. The photographs exist. They armed him, used him. And then, when he stopped being useful, they called him a monster and acted like they had never met. Afghanistan. 7 weeks after September 11th, American and British forces entered Afghanistan. The mission was clear. Destroy al-Qaeda. Remove the Taliban. Build something better. So they stayed. For 20 years, a new government was built almost entirely under Washington's direction. Hamid Karzai, a man with documented CIA connections, was installed as president. Not through election, through selection. But the strategic motive was never only about terrorism. Afghanistan shares borders with China, Russia, Iran, and Pakistan simultaneously. A permanent military presence there means eyes and leverage on every major rival at once. That was the prize behind the humanitarian language. The cost? $2.3 trillion. The most expensive military operation in American history. And the result? In August 2021, the United States withdrew. The Afghan government, 2 decades in the making, collapsed in 11 days. The Taliban walked back into Kabul without a significant fight. The soldiers America had spent 20 years training simply went home. $2.3 trillion. 20 years. 11 days. Honduras. Most people couldn't find Honduras on a map. But what happened there in 2009 is one of the clearest examples of democratic interference ever documented. And almost nobody talks about it. June 28, 2009. 5 in the morning. Soldiers surrounded the presidential residence. Manuel Zelaya, Honduras's democratically elected president, was pulled from his bed, put on a military plane, and flown out of his own country, still in his pajamas. The soldiers who carried it out were trained at American military facilities. Now here is the critical detail. Under U.S. law, if a military coup removes an elected government, American foreign aid must be cut off immediately. No exceptions. So Washington made one very deliberate decision. They refused to call it a coup. Officially, it was described as a constitutional transfer of power. And $1.5 billion in aid kept flowing directly to the military that had just removed an elected president at gunpoint. Why Zelaya? He had been raising the minimum wage, building relationships with Venezuela, shifting Honduras away from foreign corporate interests. That was enough. The consequences were catastrophic. Honduras became one of the most violent countries on earth. Institutions collapsed, gangs filled the vacuum, and hundreds of thousands of Hondurans began walking north, toward the American border, fleeing the direct results of a policy their government had helped engineer. Libya. Muammar Gaddafi had ruled Libya for 42 years. Authoritarian, brutal, and sitting on Africa's largest oil reserves. By 2011, he was no longer useful to the West. NATO launched what it called a humanitarian mission, a no-fly zone to protect Libyan civilians from government forces. What followed was a full regime change air campaign, US, UK, and French airstrikes. Armed rebel groups coordinated with Western intelligence. The official story, protecting civilians. The outcome, total state collapse. But there was something beyond oil worth noting. Gaddafi had been developing a pan-African gold-backed currency, the gold dinar, designed to conduct African oil transactions outside the US dollar system. This is documented in Hillary Clinton's declassified emails from 2011. If that currency had succeeded, it would have directly challenged the financial architecture that underpins American economic power. Gaddafi was found hiding in a drainage pipe in Sirte, beaten and killed on camera. Hillary Clinton, on hearing the news, said on camera, "We came, we saw, he died," and laughed. The result of the liberation? Open slave markets in Tripoli, documented by CNN in 2017. Human beings auctioned in the streets of a country NATO had just freed. Warring militias, no functioning government, no stability. Libya, once Africa's highest-ranked country on the UN Human Development Index, reduced to a failed state. Syria. Syria did not get an invasion. It got something slower and arguably worse, a decade-long proxy conflict, funded from outside and fought entirely by Syrians. The CIA launched Operation Timber Sycamore, one of the largest covert arms programs in American history. Billions in weapons funneled through Turkey, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia into rebel factions fighting the Assad government. This is not contested. Reported by the New York Times, the Washington Post, and confirmed by declassified government documents. The strategic logic was straightforward. Syria hosted Russia's only Mediterranean naval base. It was Iran's primary land corridor to Lebanon. Remove Assad, and you weaken both Russia and Iran simultaneously. The human cost: over 500,000 people killed, 12 million Syrians displaced, the largest refugee crisis since the Second World War. The people you watched on your screens, walking through Europe, children in their arms, everything they owned in a single bag, were the direct human result of a covert operation most of them never knew existed. When Assad finally fell in December 2024, it was not to American forces. He was ousted by the same rebel factions that Western intelligence had spent years arming and funding. The weapons sent to fight Assad ended up in the hands of people Washington now calls a threat. No clean ending. 12 million people who lost everything. A country in ruins. Egypt. Let that phrase sit for a moment. Egypt. 100 million people. The most populous Arab nation on earth. And in its entire recorded history, exactly one democratically elected president. Mohamed Morsi. He won Egypt's first free presidential election in June 2012. Internationally monitored, certified as legitimate, he lasted 1 year. General el-Sisi led the military takeover in July 2013. And Washington did exactly what it had done in Honduras. It refused to use the word coup. Because under American law, calling it a coup would have required immediately cutting off $1.5 billion per year in military aid. So the Obama administration called it a transition. And the money kept flowing to the generals who had just imprisoned the only democratically elected leader Egypt had ever had. Morsi spent 6 years in solitary confinement. On June 17, 2019, he collapsed during a court session. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. Egypt remains a military state. America remains its largest military donor. Ukraine, no bombs, no soldiers, just $5 billion and a phone call that wasn't supposed to be heard. Victoria Nuland, America's Assistant Secretary of State, publicly acknowledged that the United States had spent $5 billion promoting democracy in Ukraine over the previous 2 decades. Then a phone call between Nuland and the U.S. ambassador was intercepted and broadcast internationally. In it, they were deciding who should lead Ukraine's next government. Not hoping, not suggesting, deciding. Before the elected government had even fallen. The call was real. The recording exists. It has been widely verified. The strategic motive was NATO expansion, moving Western military infrastructure directly to Russia's border, and pulling Ukraine permanently out of Russia's sphere of influence. The result? Russia annexed Crimea. War broke out in eastern Ukraine. 8 years of grinding conflict. Then February 2022, full-scale invasion. The largest land war in Europe since 1945. Hundreds of thousands killed. Cities destroyed. A leaked phone call. $5 billion. The most devastating European war in 80 years. Bolivia. Evo Morales tripled Bolivia's GDP during his presidency. Cut poverty in half. By almost every credible economic measure, one of the most successful leaders in Latin American history. Then he began negotiating to give China preferential access to Bolivia's lithium deposits, the largest known reserves on Earth. Lithium, the mineral inside every electric vehicle, every smartphone, every modern battery, the mineral inside the device you are watching this on right now. The Organization of American States, heavily influenced by Washington, declared his 2019 re-election fraudulent. But here is what matters. Researchers at MIT conducted an independent statistical analysis of the Bolivian election results. They found no evidence of fraud. None. Under intense military pressure, Morales resigned and fled to Mexico. The result? His party won the very next election in 2020 by a landslide. The Bolivian people had not turned against him. But a message had been sent to every resource-rich government on Earth: your minerals are not entirely yours to negotiate with. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than anyone on Earth, under a socialist government that Washington could not control. In 2019, Washington took an extraordinary step. They recognized a different person as Venezuela's legitimate president. Juan Guaidó, a man who had never stood in a presidential election, was declared the rightful leader by the United States and 50 allied governments. The Venezuelan people rejected it. Guaidó never took power. Crippling economic sanctions followed, sanctions that independent UN economists documented as causing severe harm to ordinary Venezuelan civilians. Not the government they were designed to pressure. The people. 7 years of external pressure. For one thing, the world's largest oil reserves. Iran. Iran never appears in the headlines the same way Iraq or Libya does. But pull back far enough, and Iran is the thread running through almost every country on this list. Iraq was its neighbor. Syria was its corridor. Lebanon was its ally. Every move in the Middle East for 40 years was shaped, at least in part, around one central objective: breaking the Islamic Republic. The tools used were different here. No full invasion. Instead, decades of crippling sanctions that devastated ordinary Iranians while the government stayed intact. The Stuxnet cyber attack, a joint U.S.-Israeli operation that physically destroyed Iranian nuclear centrifuges. The first state-sponsored cyber weapon ever deployed. Iranian nuclear scientists assassinated on the streets of Tehran. Operations widely attributed to Israeli and American intelligence. Proxy conflicts on every border: Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, designed to bleed Iran's resources and influence without direct confrontation. None of it broke the government. What it did do was make Iran's nuclear program more determined, not less. The 40-year project, still unfinished, still ongoing: Iraq, Afghanistan, Honduras, Libya, Syria, Egypt, Ukraine, Bolivia, Venezuela, Iran. 10 countries, 10 governments, 10 leaders, removed, overthrown, imprisoned, bombed, or broken by decades of pressure. Look at what each country had. Iraq, second largest oil reserves on the planet. Afghanistan, the most strategically positioned land in Asia. Libya, Africa's largest oil reserves, plus a leader threatening the dollar system. Bolivia, the world's largest lithium deposit, about to go to China. Venezuela, more oil than any country on earth. Iran, the last significant government in the Middle East that refused to align. The United States did not go to these countries because they were dangerous. They went because they were valuable, or because they were in the way. There is a difference, and that difference has cost millions of people their lives. Here is the thing nobody tells you. None of this was particularly well hidden. The Iraq Survey Group published its findings. The Newland phone call was broadcast on international television. Hillary Clinton's emails were declassified and publicly released. The MIT researchers published their Bolivia analysis in a peer-reviewed journal. Operation Timber Sycamore was reported on the front page of the New York Times. The information was always there. What was missing was the habit of connecting it. Because here is how the system actually works. Each story is reported in isolation. Each war gets its own justification. Each regime change gets its own unique set of circumstances. And by the time the real picture emerges, years later, buried in declassified documents and academic papers, the news cycle has moved on. The next justification is already being built. The next speech is already being written. They do not hide it from you. They just count on you being too busy, too distracted, or too trusting to piece it together yourself. You just pieced it together. So here is the only question that actually matters now. The next time you turn on the news and hear that your government must act to protect freedom, to defend democracy, to prevent a threat, will you ask what they are not telling you? Because somewhere right now, a government is making decisions about its resources. And somewhere in Washington, in a room you will never see, someone is already drawing up the next plan. The playbook does not retire. It just gets updated. And now, you know what to look for. Share this with one person who needs to see it. Not for the views. Because the people around you deserve to understand the world they are actually living in. Subscribe, because this was just the beginning.